They don't know enough about the 10 demon gods, and all the information they have has been collected bit by bit over the past 6 months. As for demon god armor, they had never had a direct battle, let alone their understanding of Carag. But they could see that behind Caragher, Plato's was gradually approaching. Jusberg said directly, "Let me try this guy's strength." He raised a crescent blade, transformed into a hazy light and shadow, and rushed directly in front of Caragher. The scimitar is raised, flashing with misty brilliance, enchanting and beautiful, and can create the purest feeling. It's a pity that this kind of feeling is almost impossible to work in the battle against the mechanical life form. This is also the main reason why he lost so miserably against the demon god's body before. Putting these aside, he is also an extremely powerful strengthening ability user. So the power of this knife is very terrifying. Caragher looked up blankly when he saw the villain rushing in front of him.
Who?
Jusberg raised his machete with both hands and chopped it down angrily. The storm is raging, and the sound of breaking through the sky seems to tear apart everything in front of you, including the space. Pure and incomparable brute force burst out from his body. Even steel would be cut off by this knife.
Call.
The knife mixed with the strong wind fell and hit Caragher's head like a lead ball without any hindrance. Buzz. There was an extremely loud trembling sound, and the scimitar struck Caragher's head, but it did not directly split him in half as expected. It was the force of the shock that made Jusberg's arms feel slightly numb. He looked at everything in front of him in disbelief. His machete was not even able to cut through Caragher's iron sheet. Hey! Just when he was stunned, an iron fist came through the air and hit his body. Jusberg was exhausted at this time. He couldn't dodge this punch at all, and his chest received the blow firmly. When a simple blow landed on his chest, he clearly heard the sound of his bones breaking. Crack. The body of the reinforced black chariot-level alien did not block Caragher's blow. His body was blasted thousands of meters away like a cannonball and fell hard to the ground, leaving a deep dent. Caragher touched his head, and there was only a faint white mark left on it by Jusberg. But this made him scream angrily.
Ah!
It's so ugly, there's a scar on my head. He didn't know how shocked his performance at this time was to the strangers in the temples in front of him. Mirana's face was still expressionless, but others knew that the problem at hand might not be so easy to deal with. If there is only one demon god they are quite sure that they can win it. But now, there suddenly appeared a strange mechanical life form with terrifying defense power. Even Jusberg can't break through his defense. How can he defeat the alliance between him and demon god Purin, the god of thunder, stood up. This man, who was as strong as a brown bear with a beard, said with a heavy beard, "Let's deal with this guy. Morana, demon god will be left to you to deal with. Among us, you are the only one who has the power to defeat him." Morana's expression has not changed at all. She seems to be a little paralyzed. She has always had an expression of indifference and doesn't care about anything. "I'll deal with demon god first, and then I'll help you kill this thick iron monster. You just need to hold on for a while, 1 minute at most." Over there, Jusberg, who had been knocked into the mud, jumped out and looked at the spherical metal head with a solemn expression. His arm was still a little sore and numb, and the shock of strength just now was really hard for him to accept. The thickness of this kind of armor is probably even stronger than the defense of an ordinary demon god's body. This is not surprising. Caragher's body is made of the same material as the demon god's body. Moreover, its size is twice as small as other demon gods, and the materials used are also twice as large. The thick armor wrapped around his body made his defense almost flawless. "Let's hold him back, Jusberg,"
Perron said to Jusberg.
"Good." Jusberg bit it, and the two of them rushed toward Caragher, one on the left and the other on the right. Caragher on the other side had just knocked Jusberg away, and he put up a pose on the spot with great interest. Seeing that the two wanted to attack together, he arrogantly moved towards them and made a provocation.
Posture.
"Come on." Purin and Jusberg rushed towards Caragher like two hurricanes. The thunder entangled Purin's body with a deafening roar. Jusberg learned the lesson from before. He clenched the crescent sword with both hands and prepared to change to another. The place is under. Since the opponent is an iron-headed boy, then start from the joint area. Whether it is a human being, other animals, or a mechanical life form, there must be gaps in the joints to facilitate movement. That's his target. Seeing the two people's focused looks, Karakher also became interested. His heavy and huge body ran wildly on the ground and charged towards the two. Tomahawks and scimitars were slashing at him. Karakher's fighting style was wild and rough, using his indestructible body to collide with the opponent. The steel fists and iron legs hit and swept across, and each blow carried extremely strong power. You can imagine the scene of a super-heavy excavator and the bucket being hit hard. Karakher, who is made up of machinery, has no limitations on human power at all. The power provided by the energy core, through the transformation of various mechanical structures, allows him to exert the most powerful power unscrupulously. Perrin and Jesselberg cooperated to attack him, trying to break through his defense. But that thick armor, even if the opponent cuts it from the front, it will only leave a shallow scar at most. Fortunately, Karakher's fighting method is so simple, and both Perrin and Jesselberg have strong bodies, so they will not die easily in the collision of forces. Platos looked at the scene in the distance with extremely quiet eyes. Those two humans were good toys, and they could keep him entertained underground. He is not worried that something will happen to Karakher, because that seemingly funny body was created by him, with a lot of thought. For this reason, he once personally dismantled 3 demonic bodies and pieced together this indestructible body. His younger brother is his only relative in this world, and he will not let Karakher die. When his thoughts returned to reality, he felt a strong cold air coming, and all the surrounding space was covered in thick frost. Morana was standing less than a kilometer in front of him, watching with eager eyes. Plato stared at the female human in front of him. At this distance, he could reach her in less than a second. He knew that the other party was the strongest person in the group, but he was still ignorant when he chose to fight one-on-one with himself. But just when he was about to do something, he suddenly found that his body could no longer move. His extremely powerful mechanical body, his energy furnace full of powerful power, seemed to be at rest at this time, and the power could not be transmitted to other parts of the body through mechanical channels. Morana walked toward him step by step. At this time, Platos discovered that it was not only his body that was still, but also everything around him. Morana looked at Platos, who could not move, and approached him step by step. Each step was very slow, and even seemed a little difficult. But with her as the center, the entire area around her, even the snowflakes flying in the air, were like works of art inlaid on glass, hovering in midair. The strongest being in Fremons, the most feared strong person, Winter Goddess Morana. She has an almost unsolvable ability, Absolute Zero. With her as the center, a special field is formed, causing the temperature to instantly drop to the lowest point close to the theoretical value of the universe's temperature. When the temperature reaches this value, which may only exist in theory, the material body will undergo strange changes. It is not broken or destroyed, but all molecular activities will fall into a state of stasis. Of course, Morana's ability is not to truly make all matter stand still, nor can she achieve the true lowest temperature value in physics. But in her field, the speed of material molecules is infinitely close to that state. The snowflakes falling in the sky can fall to the ground in a few seconds, but in this field, it takes about 30 years. As for demon god B. Platos, his powerful power also needs to be transferred from the energy core through the transmission channel to the energy emission area for release. His body made of steel also needs to move in the flow of time. But when everything is close to stillness, no matter how powerful the force is, it cannot be exerted. Morana slowly walked towards Platos. This ability was her confidence. Why did she dare to directly choose the highest level of task difficulty? No matter what you want to do next, you can't do it when your body is completely unable to move. At this time, Morana had reached an area less than 10 meters in front of Platos. She raised her arms, her palms slender and pale, not like a living person. This one is slowly approaching Platos. As long as it is touched by her, she can completely freeze Plato's body in an instant and then split it into pieces. In the command center of Fremons, the three giants of Pertigar held their breath and stared at this place. Through the lenses on the battlefield, they could clearly see everything happening here. It is a forbidden area that cannot be approached, and no one can stop Morana from doing whatever she wants. Even attacks launched from the world will immediately fall into a state of stasis after contacting this area. Nothing can stop Morana from killing Plato's. Pitaka's heart almost rose to his throat. Plato's consciousness was awake, but his body was completely unable to move. No matter how he issued commands to his body, the process of converting his consciousness into electrical signals and transmitting them to his body was extremely slow, and he could not wait for his furnace to start. He will be touched with his right hand by the woman approaching him. Among the 10 mechanical demon gods, Plato's, one of the most powerful demon gods, is about to be killed by Morana. The tail of the dagger is inlaid with red crystals, which are so bright that they are dazzling. Thousands of daggers flew not very fast, but they were enough to surround Morana. Morana's eyes became even colder, and her whole body was once again filled with dark blue ice mist, forming a huge absolute zero field around her body. Thousands of daggers were sealed in midair, and in the distance, Plato's raised his mechanical arm and pointed it at her and flicked his fingers slightly. The dagger, which was originally stagnant in midair, suddenly shot towards Morana's body at an even faster speed. The densely packed daggers formed a ball, blocking all the space around Morana. Morana can only affect the area centered on herself, but at this time, she can no longer control Plato's body, let alone control his daggers with telekinesis. The coldness in Morana's eyes became more and more intense, and the cold air around her body became stronger and stronger, as if it was freezing the air. The advancement speed of the dagger finally slowed down a lot, but it was still advancing slowly, with a stable attitude. This was a contest of strength. Neither she nor Plato's moved, but there was a fierce collision between telekinesis and frost. As long as Molana relaxes even a little bit, her body will be penetrated by those daggers, and her whole body will be shot into a honeycomb. However, compared to Morana's tightness, Prados seems to be at ease. He controlled the daggers with dexterous fingers, as if teasing prey, and slowly advanced towards her body. Now, however, no one can help Malana. Whether it is Purin or Giselberg, just fighting with Karakher at this time has made them extremely tired. Karag is an upgraded version of the lower demon god, and his defense is several orders of magnitude stronger than the demon god Goe. Just for that kind of extremely thick armor, even Zhang Eli would have to use the god's domain pure tribulation dozens of times in a row to have a chance to blast it away. What's more, he has a powerful core of strength and relies purely on strength and defense to fight. He has already beaten the two of them in an extremely embarrassing situation. Morana naturally does not expect help from others. As an icy queen, she has long been accustomed to fighting alone without relying on others. The dagger has slowly formed a circle around her. At this rate, it will pierce her combat uniform and stab her body in at most minutes. At this moment, her lips moved slightly, and she quickly issued an instruction. At the same time, the Tsangcheong-1 satellite had already been prepared in space. Facing the side sunlight, it gathered powerful power at its tip and fired a white measuring cannon at the Earth. Attacks dropped from the sky, arriving in an instant, and the speed became faster and faster under the influence of heavy forces. Morana approached step by step, and her right hand was about to touch Plato's armor in the next moment. And at this moment, a majestic force suddenly burst out from Plato's body, like a raging storm, directly hitting Morana's body. Boom! Morana's body was severely knocked out, and her absolute zero domain began to slowly disintegrate. The ecstasy in the eyes of the giant Pitaka disappeared instantly and turned into shock and fear. This is not allowed. Pitaka's voice changed. Morana, absolute zero, cannot be cracked. What on earth is that? Suddenly, he seemed to be thinking of something in his mind, and his lips couldn't help but tremble. There is only one kind of love. There is only one kind of love. Aliyev and Vladimir could no longer bear it, stared at him and asked, "What on earth is going on?" Pataka pointed at the picture, swallowed bitter saliva, and said in a trembling voice, "Ideas. Marana's absolute zero temperature, the only thing that cannot be blocked, is the mind of the living body. Humanity's research on aliens has lasted for years. It is currently known that human thoughts are a very special existence. Human beings initially understood that the so-called thoughts are nothing more than the transmission of electrical signals between neurons. However, with the subsequent advancement of alien research, it was discovered that this was not the case. It is a very special thing that does not exist attached to the material body. It can even exist forever without the material body, forming the existence of a soul in human legends. As for the thought body, it is powerful and can even affect other people, such as Zhang Yi's different space, which cannot move to contain creatures with self-consciousness. Luke Heron's divine machine control and the upgraded void transformation can decompose all matter, but it is only ineffective on people with self-consciousness. The same is true for Molana, Absolute Zero. It can make almost everything on the material plane stand still, but it can only freeze thinking and realize the true standstill of time. What Padaka was thinking of was the information that Zhang Yi had told him. Among the demonic bodies, upper-level demons can possess supernatural powers. They are living entities, not simply mechanical beings. Patako informed the temples of this information, but they did not take it too seriously. After all, aliens are good, artificial humans are just different life forms. But they never expected that demon god be Plato's possessed a powerful. Plato's is in the absolute zero realm, and the surrounding realm slowly shatters as he repels Molinar. His body was already moving enough, and he looked coldly at Morana in the distance, shocked by her. Such, even among other ethnic groups, can be regarded as the top level. It's just a pity that the enemy Morana met was him, one of the most powerful people among the people left from the ancient civilization to this day. He is the one who has gone through endless years and finally remains strong. Morana's body was violently hit and flew away. She had a cold face, but an abnormal scarlet color appeared on her fair face. Although she was trying her best to hold back, a wisp of blood still overflowed from the corner of her mouth, slowly dripping down the corner of her mouth and forming ice flowers on the ground. Her realm was shattered, but Plato's still stood there carelessly. But behind Plato's, slender mechanical contacts were dancing crazily. In an instant, those contacts suddenly tightened and shot towards the direction of Morana. Where is the touch? There are clearly thousands of sharp daggers forming a weapon. At this time, each dagger is suspended in the air and fired towards Morana. When Plato sensed the arrival of a powerful force, it had already lit up the sky above his head. Facing this attack, Plato's directly raised his left hand and pointed his palm at the sky. Defense field? That's something for the lower demon gods to use. There is no alien demon body, so rely on this to face aliens. But he doesn't have this need at all. Read to create a huge barrier, blocking Songcheong No. 1's attack. The white light beam shot on the transparent barrier, violently impacting this layer of defense. The energy collided, lighting up everything around it in the dark night. The dazzling white light even made soldiers and mechanical life forms in the distance stand out. All lost their goals. At the Fremon's Combat Command Center, the hearts of the giants Pradaga, Aliyev, and Vladimir had already reached their throats. He was actually enough to block Song Cheong No. 1's attack. Vladimir couldn't believe it and stood up, slapping the table. Everyone in the entire command center showed panic expressions. Song Cheong 1's strike can cover an area within 100 meters in radius. From the perspective of space, it is only a very small spot. In a small area, it causes destruction, which is greater than the death of love in small and medium-sized areas. But this kind of attack has no effect on demon god, B. Plato's. However, is not completely ineffective. Plato's power comes from himself and the large number of red power crystals embedded in his body. When he released his mind shield to resist Song Cheong No. 1's attack, his control over the dagger was partially weakened. This allowed Morana to control them and then directly freeze them with icicles. Morana did not choose to retreat, but pressed his hands on the ground and suddenly rushed towards Plato's like a vigorous cheetah. Her eyes were burning with fighting spirit. She didn't believe that she would be ineffective against the guy in front of her. At the very least, she can freeze the other person's body. But just because the other party is not prepared to use, will be suddenly attacked. However, if she could think of this, couldn't Plato's think of it? He would not stand still and let Morana use Absolute Zero again to seal him. Morana is indeed very fast, but he is even faster. As a top Nien master, his speed has even reached, which is almost equivalent to the speed of space travel. Because he does not need to use any external objects, but completely relies on his thoughts to control his body. Even wind resistance will be erased by his thoughts. Morana couldn't get close to Prado's body, so it was difficult for her to use her power. Bang! 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 The icicles shattered, Plato's controlled the black daggers, and thousands of daggers attacked Morana again. They intertwined into a large airtight net in the air, and the red power crystals behind them flashed with deadly light. They are not very fast because there is no need for that. Controlling thousands of daggers at the same time, even if the speed is reduced, as long as Plato's has a thought, they will chase Morana to the end of the world.